listener. Welcome to Cybersecurity Matters, a podcast where you get trending cybersecurity news and innovative cybersecurity solutions. Cybersecurity Matters is a podcast presented by GeeTest. Hi, I'm Haley, your today's host. Welcome to the first episode of Cybersecurity Matters. In today's episode, we start with a slight but a little bit annoying problem that everyone may face every day. Yes, I mean CAPTCHAs. People often ask, why am I getting CAPTCHAs? How CAPTCHA work against bots? Is CAPTCHA still effective? And if you happen to have an online business, you may also ask, do I really need CAPTCHA on my website? So today I have Junnan on board with us. He's a senior web developer, software engineer, and cybersecurity expert at GeeTest. He's also currently the Chief Product Officer of GeeTest Adaptive CAPTCHA, and in that role, he analyzes and solves all bot-driven attacks with this new upgrade of GeeTest Capture series, Adaptive CAPTCHA. Thanks for joining me today, Junnan.
Thanks for having me. It's my pleasure to share my experience of developing GeeTest Adaptive CAPTCHA and anything else about bot problems which you guys want to know.
Since this is the first episode of our podcast, could you give our listeners a brief introduction of GeeTest before we start?
Well, our story is actually quite simple. GeeTest is derived from a forecast made by one of the founders years ago. Long story short, one of the founders of GeeTest saw the decline of text-based CAPTCHAs in the foreseeable future over 10 years ago. And then, here is GeeTest, a company that protects over 320,000 websites, apps, and APIs worldwide.
Oh, I've heard this story before. The two founders used to be researchers in a state key laboratory, right? And as researchers, they needed to collect loads of papers from the internet. That's where they came across lots of CAPTCHAs when gathering resources online. They said almost all websites presented them with twisted numbers, letters, or words. And they found it quite time-consuming to solve these CAPTCHAs. And as they both majored in information engineering, they know things about AI and machine learning. And they could foresee that one day computers can easily solve the text-based CAPTCHAs with the help of image processing technology. That was the point that the founders wanted to do something new about legacy CAPTCHA and the human-computer interaction. Am I right?
Yeah, that's true. And you've already known the rest of the story. They started GeeTest in 2012 and created the world's first user behavior analysis-based CAPTCHA in 2013. And I have to say this, it's 5 years earlier than the third version of Google's reCAPTCHA. It actually is reCAPTCHA's first behavior analysis-based CAPTCHA. Their old versions are both text-based CAPTCHAs.
Wow, there were a lot of terms. Since you mentioned reCAPTCHA and behavior analysis, am I right? So could you tell us more about the meaning of these terms? What's behavior analysis-based CAPTCHA? And what's the difference between GeeTest CAPTCHA and other non-behavioral analysis-based CAPTCHAs?
The reason why CAPTCHA was created in the first place is to tell human users and bots apart. So websites can only be used by real people who actually need it, not automated bots that are controlled by some people who are up to no good. Non-behavior analysis-based CAPTCHA can do the job at the early stage by presenting users with twisted letters and numbers that can only be recognized by humans at the time, while the development of OCR and computer vision make those CAPTCHAs not efficient anymore because bots can easily get the answer, not to mention the critics about the annoying CAPTCHAs from users. Behavior analysis-based CAPTCHA provides the challenge from a different dimension. It uses human cognitive and behavioral features to detect non-human users. It is more difficult for today's bot to pass, but easier for real people to get the answers. Therefore, behavior analysis-based CAPTCHA is more secure and user-friendly.
That's quite clear. I can understand it now. But I noticed you mentioned behavior analysis-based CAPTCHA is harder for today's bots to pass. What do you mean by today's bots? Does it mean the CAPTCHAs will fail to stop bots in the future eventually, even if it's behavior analysis based?
I'm glad you got the point. You see, technological change makes the old text-based CAPTCHA not efficient anymore. The same thing would finally happen to behavior analysis-based CAPTCHA one day. I always see the battle between attackers and defenders as a long-distance race. Sometimes, cyber attackers may be in the lead, and sometimes we as defenders of millions of websites and apps run ahead. Our ultimate goal is to find the break-even point for attackers and fraudsters, and widen the gap between cost and profit for them.
You sound like a philosopher, but I can totally understand you. A good CAPTCHA or any security solution should grow with technology. So far, you've told us about what behavior analysis-based CAPTCHA is and the difference between GeeTest CAPTCHA and other non-behavior analysis-based CAPTCHAs. So I wonder if CAPTCHA is still the go-to web security solution for today's bot traffic prevention, since it has been 20 years when CAPTCHA was first invented. Can you give us an overview of today's bot traffic?
First, you should know what is bot traffic. Bot traffic refers to any non-human traffic to a website or an app. Bots usually are automated scripts and programs and used for automating simple and repetitive tasks. For example, web crawlers or spiders help search engines like Google and Bing to index the content of websites all across the internet. And ticket scalping bots relentlessly help scalpers get sought after concert tickets or goods by monitoring target websites, creating accounts, adding items to cart, and checkout automatically. There are good bots, bad bots, and some fall on the grey part. If you cannot deal with these bots correctly, the consequences can be severe.
What would that be?
To put it simply, malicious bot traffic brings negative impact on all types of online businesses. Typically speaking, there are three ways that bot traffic can damage online businesses. First, it diminishes the accuracy of a website or app data. Imagine that you are a website owner with a bunch of bots visiting your website. You might be misled in the wrong direction by a web analytic metric like bounce rate, average time on page, and percent of returning visitors, etc. Second, bots traffic is eating your ad budget. Click fraud is a common type of bot attack where bots keep clicking on pay-per-click ads to exhaust the company's ad budget and increase customer acquisition costs. Soaring costs would disturb decision makers' plan and even lead them to stop advertising. Third, bot activities affect website performance and damage user experience consequently. Let me give you an example. Your average page loading speed is 3 or 2 seconds. When suddenly a high volume of bot traffic floods your server, your average page loading speed is raised to over 10 seconds, which would possibly make your user abandon the site.
That's definitely not what online business owners would want to see. So, how could you detect bot traffic if they could do all those damages to online businesses?
Generally, there are three ways. First, analyze the website visiting data and pay attention to IPs and users who have abnormal visiting frequencies. If their frequencies are above the limit you set, they should be suspicious requests. Second one, check request headers, such as user agents, refers, etc., to see whether these parameters meet the standard of real and normal websites. Third, check browser cookies that contain specific data to see whether it is a real user or a bot. For certain websites, there are some specific measures to check whether the visitors is a bot or not. Anyway, the core of bot detection is to find the difference between real users and bots from as many dimensions as possible, some of which are usually not easy to spot.
So these are common ways that almost all CAPTCHAs use to detect bots, right? And what about GeeTest CAPTCHA? I know you led the development of GeeTest Adaptive CAPTCHA. Tell us about the difference between GeeTest CAPTCHA and other CAPTCHAs in terms of the ways they detect bots.
CAPTCHAs you can find in the market now, including GeeTest Captures old versions, offer passive and static protection, which means that those CAPTCHAs have to wait until attacks happen and then analyze attacks in order to provide targeted protections the next time. Those CAPTCHAs need time to respond, making protections always have a latency. GeeTest Adaptive CAPTCHAs or GeeTest Capture v4 change this condition by continuously adapting to attack trends and clients' needs and offer adaptive security strategies. It can actively and dynamically adapt to the changing attack methods, which in turn widen the gap between cost and profit for fraudsters.
Sounds like GeeTest Adaptive CAPTCHA works by continuously adapting to the changing attack trends and does not degrade over time.
Yes, GeeTest Adaptive CAPTCHA combines evolving detection strategies, dynamic risk engine, real-time challenge response mechanism, an integrable dashboard, and multilingual support for clients worldwide to help them bridge the gap between web security and positive user experience.
Thank you, Junnan, for sharing all this with us today. That was quite informative. Bot traffic can be a tricky problem for organizations worldwide, since the world has seen a wave of digital fraud ever since the pandemic. Companies, no matter large or small, all need to watch out for these attacks, so they can have safe and prosperous business growth. And CAPTCHA is still an effective go-to security solution for most business today. Well, this is for today's episode. Thanks to our listeners who I hope had an equally enjoyable time and learned something from this. Thank you for listening. I'm your host today, Haley. If you love the show, follow us on Spotify, Google Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast. Till next time, bye!